Hi there, guys. So, critical reasoning questions. Okay, this is another session of critical reasoning exercises similar to the other one that's available on the platform. So, we're going to do another 4 exercises. I'm going to put them up on the screen. You guys can look at them, and then I'll give you some time. Okay, I'll read the questions with you, and then I will give you some time to think strategy, think what the best answer might be, and then I will discuss the actual answers with you. Okay, so let's get started here. Okay, a bakery in neighborhood X sells cakes that are very intricately created using a rare method that a bakery in nearby town Y used in previous years. Because of its complexity, the baking method is unlikely to have developed independently in both bakeries. One food critic theorized that the bakers at neighborhood X's bakery must have learned the method from the bakers at town's Y bakery. The answer to which of the following questions would be most useful in evaluating the critic's theory? A. Do bakers ever leave their own bakeries in order to socialize with other bakers? B. Are baked goods ever brought from bakery to bakery? C. Do bakers in towns Y's bakeries still employ the same method to create cakes? D. Do food critics personally travel to local bakeries to sample their baked goods? And E. Does the bakery in neighborhood X sell any other types of baked goods? So I'll give you some time here to think about the problem. Okay, read the alternatives, and shortly I will be back to discuss the answer with you. So go for it. Okay, so this is a type of question that is referred to in the more technical books. They will find and evaluate questions. So we have an argument here, okay, and in order to assess whether the argument makes a lot of sense, okay, we could ask a question, okay. So which one of these questions would be most useful in evaluating the critic's theory? What's the theory? Well, the theory is that the bakers at neighborhood X's bakery must have learned the method from the bakers at town's Y bakery. Okay. So, letter A. Okay, do bakers ever leave their own bakeries in order to socialize with other bakers? Okay, this word socialize, I mean, yeah, maybe they go hang out, talk about soccer or what have you, but this is about the recipe. Okay, the method or how to create that that wonderful cake. So A is a bit vague. Okay, now B, on the other hand, is not so vague. B is, are baked goods ever brought from bakery to bakery? Okay, if we could answer this question, okay, we could better evaluate the theory. Why? Because let's assume, okay, that the bakers at the Y bakery bring to Bakery X their goods. If that happens, well, maybe the truth is the bakers at Bakery X didn't learn anything, right? They're just selling something that came from elsewhere. So at the same pace, of course. If that is not the case, then the theory could be a good theory. So, since we have to assess the theory, evaluate the theory, then B, I think, is a pretty decent question. Okay, C doesn't matter so much. Do they employ the same method to create cakes? Okay, but what does that have to do with them learning from X learning from them? Okay, if they changed it, it doesn't change the fact that they might have learned the other recipe from them. D, do food critics personally travel to local bakeries to sample their baked goods? Well, even if they don't, I mean, how does that have anything to do with the argument? Okay, E, does the bakery neighborhood X sell any other types of baked goods? Well, they probably do, but that also doesn't have anything to do with that particular recipe. Maybe even if the bakery sold only one thing, that wouldn't change the theory at all. Okay, so letter B is a good answer. Now let's move on to the second question. Okay. And as you'll see, if you remember the previous session, we had some anthropologists in South America, and we have another question about anthropologists in South America here. Okay, so let's read it together. Some anthropologists believe that South America was first settled by Pacific Islanders who first traveled there by boat. But a new group disagrees with this theory. They point out that the Bering Land Bridge would have allowed settlers to travel from Asia to North America and from there on to South America, and thus the boat theory is unlikely. Which of the following statements, if true, most supports the group that dissents from the boat theory? Okay, letter A says it is far more difficult for groups to travel by boats than to walk over land. B, the settlement of South America via the Bering Land Bridge would have taken more time than the settlement of South America by boat. C, the settlement of South America by boat is a relatively untested theory. D, the Bering Land Bridge was later submerged by water. And E, if the Bering Land Bridge were submerged, it would have been impossible for settlers from Asia to reach South America by land. Okay. Once again, I'll give you guys some time to think about this. Okay, think about a strategy, think about the argument, choose an alternative, and I'll be back in just a second to discuss the answer with you. Go for it. Okay, so this is a strengthened question. Okay, this is also very common on the test. So The question is, which of the following statements, if true, remember the importance of if true, most supports, again, most supports, this is also important, the group that dissents from the both theory. And then here we get the specificity, which also matters a lot. We've got to be careful with that. Sometimes, see, by the time you reach the verbal part of the test, you could be really tired. And sometimes, if you're not paying attention, it's really easy to misunderstand the question. And sometimes the question is easy. I think this question is actually pretty simple. Okay, so the group that dissents from the both theory, in other words, the group that supports the Bering Land Bridge hypothesis, right? Letter A says it is far more difficult for groups to travel by boat than to walk over land. Okay, if this is true, then I mean this definitely supports the hypothesis. Okay, if we look at letter B, the settlement of South America via the Bering Land Bridge would have taken more time than the settlement. Okay, that doesn't support it at all. See, the settlement of South America by boat is a relatively untested theory. Okay, but is the Bering Land Bridge a tested theory? I don't know. Okay, so even if C is true, there's something there that could not support it as much as letter A, for example. So C is not too bad, but A is better. D, the Bering Land Bridge was later submerged by water. Okay, later. That doesn't matter. Okay. E, if the Bering Land Bridge were submerged, it would have been impossible for settlers from Asia to reach South America by land. Again, D and E, okay, don't really touch upon the problem. Okay, letter D, okay, maybe the hypothesis is true and then it was later submerged. That has nothing to do with the hypothesis, really. E, if the Bering Land Bridge were submerged, it would have been impossible. Okay, but we assume that if it weren't submerged, then it was possible. D and E really complicate your life more than anything. So letter A, which is actually the simplest of all the alternatives, is the actual answer. Okay. All right. Now, third question. A report that a crop of spinach from a major grower had become contaminated apparently did not alarm consumers. Few consumers made plans to change their spinach buying habits after hearing the reports. Despite this, after the report came out in late August, spinach sales in supermarkets dropped drastically in the first 2 weeks of September. Which of the following, if true, is the best explanation of why spinach sales dropped? A, because only a small amount of spinach was contaminated, and because that spinach was traced and destroyed, public officials did not believe the contaminated spinach posed a major health threat. B, the report appeared in all the major news outlets, including online. C, many supermarket chains removed spinach from their shelves in late August in an effort to prevent potential lawsuits. D, although another grower reported that a crop of squash had become contaminated, the report about the spinach did not mention that fact. E, due to a dramatic increase in the number of food safety warnings in recent months, consumers have become increasingly indifferent to such warnings. All right, so again, minute and a half, think through the exercise, and we'll discuss the answer in just a bit. Okay, so let's see. This type of question is fairly common as well. Which of the following, if true, is the best explanation of why spinach sales dropped? Here, the idea is this is an explanation question. It's an explain question. Okay, so the idea here is that you have a situation that is not quite clear. Okay, sometimes it's paradoxical, and we have to find an alternative that will provide a reasonable explanation and solve the paradox. Basically, that's it. It's a bit of detective work, if you wish. So, which of the following, if true, again, never forget that, is the best explanation of why spinach sales dropped? Okay. So, let's see. Okay, we know that there was a report, okay, that a crop of spinach from a major grower had become contaminated, okay, but apparently it didn't alarm consumers. So, few consumers made plans to change their spinach buying habits after hearing the reports. Okay, so they learned that they would get sick and basically thought it would be a good idea to keep buying it. Okay, good for them. But despite this, after the report came out in late August, the sales actually dropped, although people didn't seem to be planning on not buying spinach. So how do we explain that? Okay, we look at letter A. Because only a small amount of spinach was contaminated and because that spinach was traced and destroyed, public officials did not believe the contaminated spinach posed a major health threat. Okay, well, why did the sales drop then? Letter A doesn't explain it at all. B, the report appeared in all the major news outlets, including online. Okay, so everybody learned about this. Still, as the text says, few people expressed the desire to buy something else or not buy spinach. Okay, so B doesn't explain anything. C, many supermarket chains removed spinach from their shelves in late August in an effort to prevent potential lawsuits. Of course, that makes sense, right? So there was a report, right? Consumers didn't care much. Well, the supermarkets did. So they took the spinach out of their shelves, okay? And of course, the sales dropped because of that. Letter C is our answer. Okay. Now D talks about a crop of squash, has nothing to do with spinach. Okay, and E would explain why consumers didn't care so much about the report, but it doesn't explain why the sales actually dropped. So letter C is our answer. And let's try one more exercise before we go. So this is a weekend exercise, which is also very common. So let's see. A study of marital relationships in which one partner's sleeping and waking cycles differ from those of the other partner reviews that such couples share fewer activities with each other and have more violent arguments than do couples in a relationship in which both partners follow the same sleeping and waking patterns. Thus, mismatched sleeping and waking cycles can seriously jeopardize a marriage. So which of the following, if true, most seriously weakens the argument above? A, married couples in which both spouses follow the same sleeping and waking patterns also occasionally have arguments that can jeopardize the couple's marriage. B, the sleeping and waking cycles of individuals tend to vary from season to season. C, the individuals who have sleeping and waking cycles that differ significantly from those of their spouses tend to argue little with colleagues at work. D, people in unhappy marriages have been found to express hostility by adopting different sleeping and waking cycles from those of their spouses. And E, according to a recent study, most people's sleeping and waking cycles can be controlled and modified easily. Okay, so again, minute and a half, you guys can start thinking about this, and I will be back with the answer in just a bit. So good luck, and go ahead. Okay. So this is a classic problem of weaken, or here the idea, okay, is that you understand first in the argument what's the cause and what's the effect. Okay. If we know that, one very efficient way to weaken the argument would be to invert the relationship, making the effect the cause of the cause, basically. Okay. So let's see if we understand this. Okay. Here we know that basically people have a couple, right? So you have a couple, one partner sleeping and waking cycles differ from those of the other partner. Okay, and that reveals that such couples share fewer activities with each other and have more violent arguments than do couples in a relationship in which both partners follow the same sleeping and waking patterns. The conclusion is that mismatched sleeping and waking cycles can seriously jeopardize the marriage. Okay, now this would be the effect. Okay, now let's assume actually that a marriage already in jeopardy leads to having a different sleeping and waking cycle. Okay, the letter D says exactly that. People in unhappy marriages have been found to express hostility by adopting different sleeping and waking cycles from those of their spouses. Since the question is which of the following, if true, most seriously weakens the argument above, okay? If D is true, the argument is done with, right? We made the effect into the cause and the cause into the effect, okay? So letter D is our answer, okay? And this is a very useful way to think about critical reasoning questions involving weakening arguments. Okay, inverting the cause and effect relationship when, of course, it is clear what it is in the exercise. Sometimes we have to think in a different way, but this is a fairly common exercise structure on GMAT. So, guys, I hope you benefited from this session, okay? And remember, always, whenever you have questions, okay, you can always reach us at MBAprep@MBAprep.com.br. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you guys have a great day. So, cheers.